dad always tried to pretend he was above it all, but I think deep down he was deeply scared, because no person likes to be with a spouse who's really, really angry. It's frightening, because it means they're not themselves. You see what I mean? So I think it took me a very long time to be able totally to relax with women. And I think after watching James Bond movies in the late 60s, I thought there was some kind of button that you could press in yourself, and suddenly you become debonair.
Suave. But there was no magic button.
There was no magic button. It took me about 20 years to discover that if you adjust yourself, it was kind of all right.
Were you uncomfortable with women for 20 years?
Suave, I love that word. Yes, I think I was in my mid-30s before I began to get comfortable talking to women. Yeah, really.
And that all stems back to Mom.
I think so, because I never had much difficulty with my relationships with other chaps, because I was hugely fond of my dad. He was very kind to me and gave me a sense of security. So, I mean, I'm not blaming her, which is what the British papers say, because psychologically those British journalists are so illiterate. What I'm actually saying is it's cause and effect. See what I mean? It's not a question of blame, but if you have a mother like that, it's likely that things will be more difficult than if you have a mother who's instinctively empathetic. Because Mum was so anxious the whole time, but she didn't have any energy over to be empathetic. Because if you're empathetic with someone, you're listening to them. You can't listen to them if you've got all these fears running in your head and worries about what's going to happen next. You see?
Sure.
You're distracted all the time.
You remained, I mean, for lack of a better word, you remained the good son throughout her life,
Dutiful.
though. Dutiful.
Dutiful. That's right.
Did you feel
well,
like
I knew if I killed her, the police would immediately finger me. You know, there was no chance. It was just like my third ex-wife. You know, it would have cost nothing to have had her killed. But I knew the police would immediately say, "Hello, Mr. Cleese. I don't know if you heard the news, but we need to." Wasn't me. I just talked to this Serbian guy in a cafe. You know. I'm being silly, I'm sorry.
Were you able to make peace with your mom, do you
Yes,
feel like, before she died?
Yeah. Well, as she ran out of energy, she became less mean. That was the key. She didn't have any energy to be unpleasant anymore. And she actually became very sweet. And she died, I always say at the stage show, eventually, at the age of 101. And she was fine until 100. And the last year, she got a little bit confused. And I had a genuine affection for her. But when I used to go back to see her after Dad died, she would, I mentioned this in the book, she used to greet me at the door, and she'd have this little piece of paper in her hands, and that was a list of her worries. And she'd been writing them down, literally, so that she wouldn't forget any. And then we'd sit down, she'd give me a cup of coffee, and we would just discuss her worries and go through them for maybe an hour or 2 hours or so, maybe another cup of coffee. If we didn't finish them, we'd finish them at breakfast. And she'd work her way through this long list of 15 or 20 things that she got in her mind that she was on. And just my fact that I was listening to her and being in contact with her calmed her. It didn't last long with calming.